Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 194. This week was my pick. It's called Wild Wild Space. You can watch it on Max, and it's a hour-and-a-half documentary about the capitalization, I guess, of space.
Or is it
commercialization?
Yeah,
I mean, because it gets capitalism,
or is it
commercialization.
privatization? Is that what they would call that?
Well, the idea is that there isn't a whole lot of regulation in space. Because,
to find out, you can just go up there.
It's like, if you can figure out how to get a rocket up there, buddy.
If you can figure out how to make it,
you want, honestly. So this kind of tells the story, and of course it starts with Elon Musk and SpaceX and all that
He's
stuff.
done some great things for space, right?
But then, I mean, it's right out of the gate. Don't think it's like these guys that are just like, they want, they were big fans of Star Trek, and they're all about space exploration. They want to make as much money as they possibly can.
You heard they found diamonds, like Mercury is like 10 feet of diamonds or something on the surface.
Get it out of there? But
again, somebody's going to try.
But again, so that right out of the gate, make no mistake, except for, I don't know, the New Zealand guy, I think he's just doing it because he's insane. But we'll get into these
just
characters,
to say he did it or cast
of characters in this documentary. But of course, make no mistake, these guys are all about the money. And it really follows three individuals that have been kind of got their own hand in space exploration from the commercial side. And their approaches, what they believe in, why they do what they do, and kind of how this thing all started, which is, I thought, was pretty interesting in itself. And it really began with the idea that there was a guy who was involved with the Star Wars program in the 80s under Reagan. And he gets fired. But then eventually NASA's like, hey, we need to bring you into this thing in California. It's not going so good. And so he, being an open-minded guy, which I think this is the best way to manage people, is to bring in new blood. And he brings in all these guys that have, they're not military dudes.
No, fresh ideas.
They're all academics.
Out of the box thinkers.
They're really smart kids, but they start really like trying to figure out like, hey, we don't have to spend like the billions and billions and billions that you thought you had to, like we did in the 50s and 60s to get to the moon. We don't have to do that anymore.
Well, if government's involved, it's going to be overspending, and nobody's going to
a lot of red tape.
Red tape. Pinch. Nobody's going to pinch pennies. Everybody's going to overcharge.
Yeah.
Privateering, you can control the spending and hey, that's not what that should cost.
And also, like, again, at this point, like other people are already getting into it. So the government's so far behind, no one really cares about NASA. But then all of a sudden, Elon Musk comes. He's like, I'm doing SpaceX. Everyone's like, oh, this is badass.
Yeah,
let's do this.
It's like a modern NASA.
Again, they're still involved. But like you said, once the government gets their hands on it, it just takes a lot. There's so much regulation. There's so much little you can do. But again, it was interesting to see all these guys' takes, and we'll talk about that next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The K. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 194. Wild, Wild Space. And of course, the title comes from the idea that this is really the last unexplored country, even though we've explored it. And the thing that kind of blows my mind straight out of the gate too is they start talking about all the satellites rotating the planet, right? And at, they thought it would be at this number, but then it's actually like 8,000. And then they thought it was going to be this number, and that's like 10,000. What the hell are we going to do in 20, 30 years when it's just like literally a cloud of debris in the sky?
Yeah. How are you going to?
Who's regulating that?
Yeah. Well, that's where the flat earther guys come in.
We're not going down that road. You can talk about that somewhere else, my friend.
Somebody might call in with their flat earth theory.
Sure. Again, if you do, there is a great video online that I showed Jay recently when you started bringing up this flat earth nonsense. And I said,
I watched a great flat earth
two guys that were huge flat earthers that went out to do the experiment. They set up the poles, they set them far away, and then it proved in their video that there was a curve, which proved that the planet was curved. If they could figure out the distance and circumference of the earth in ancient Roman times based on the shadows of the monuments erected on this planet, my friend, all between then and now, we didn't flatten the earth.
I feel like Mike needs someone to call in with their flat earth theory.
Yeah, okay, well, please. You can say all you want, and I can just say, you know what? There's a thing called truth and a thing called false, and whatever you want to believe, bro, that's fine. That's cool. Stupid. Anyway, so I don't even know what the hell we were talking
I
about.
love to get Mike
yeah,
heated.
he's just
I love to
poking,
get Mike heated up.
it's poking the intern is what he likes to call it. So anyway, because it's ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Please call him if you think they're this flat.
It's
Please
2024,
convince
for
Mike.
Christ's sake.
Convince Mike.
2024, man. And the thing that blows my mind is like, have you ever read 1984, my friend? George
Me?
Orwell?
No.
Yeah. The final, most hardcore act was ignoring what you see and hear in front of your face.
No.
That's where we're at, bro. When you have things like that pop up and people actually believe this crap, it's like, dude, but again, I don't entertain because it's like I always say, you want to believe in a fairy godmother that grants wishes. That's awesome. If she's granting your wishes, dude, I tell her where I live so I can get some wishes granted. You know what I mean? It is what it is, but that stuff is nonsense. Anyway, so you really meet three different people. You meet one that's definitely like the flamboyant, slick back hair. He's in the Silicon Valley, money. You meet that dude and his company. You meet his friend who he was a buddy with, which that was crazy. Like they did call themselves the odd couple, but these two dudes that met in college that became friends. The other guy went off to form Planet, which is kind of like more of an eco-friendly, we need to do this for humanity, not money, kind of that stance. And then you got this dude in New Zealand who's never been to school in his life, has no PhD. He's not an astrophysicist at all.
He's just a doer.
But like the guy builds rockets, like legitimately didn't have to go to college to do this. Now, this is what I wanted to bring up. While I was watching this, I was like, we got to talk about this. Do you think college degrees are worth it anymore? I mean, you got this dude in New Zealand who's literally working for a rocket, has his own rocket ship company, and you pay him millions of dollars so that he will launch satellites or whatever you want into space. He makes money doing that. He didn't go to school at all. He didn't go to college.
I feel like the college degree these days, it's definitely become watered down, or it's not as necessary.
And you got the other dude, Mr. CEO, who was in college. He dropped out and started his own company.
Yeah.
Immediately. And this was like the early days of the internet. And it's like, so I bring that up not to dissuade you kids to go to school.
Yeah,
and personally,
be cool, stay in school.
I still think that there is a very valuable experience in having that for, in my case, 6 year,
6 year high school experience you had.
College, my friend.
Oh.
So
you don't have to. I don't think these days you don't have to get a degree.
You don't. But again, what I was going to say was, I think it's valuable to have that experience. I don't think it's worth paying six figures and getting yourself
right.
Six figures
That's
in
the
debt.
problem is you get in this huge debt,
But
and then
what are you gonna do? You still live at home with your parents? Can't afford to buy a house?
And the student loan debt can be gnarly, and it's not cancelable. Even if you file bankruptcy, you still owe that.
And guess
debt.
what, buddy? You don't get any good credit when you pay it off. So the only thing it does is just screw you.
And I think you even with the college degree, it's not like there's these great jobs out there waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people that got degrees and they're not using them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those situations where this, especially, even though this documentary literally had nothing to do with college education, that was like the first thing I thought of. I was like,
or flat Earth. We basically talked about everything but the documentary,
except for Mr. NASA. But he was a Paul, whatever his last name was. He was military, but most of these dudes, they were self-taught. You know what I mean? And it just kind of goes to show you that it might not be worth it. Anyway, we'll actually get back to space next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 194, discussing Wild Space. So again, another part of this documentary, which tells about the commercialization of space, is kind of like how, they break it down where back in the day, this is what it would cost you to send something into space, whether it be a camera, satellite, broadband satellite, whatever, any kind of satellite. You can send them up. They're the size of toasters if you want to, right? They've made them very small. They actually at one point sent a camera up there just to prove that it didn't need to be this huge thing, right? They could actually control it, which I thought was very cool.
Well, like everything gets smaller and cheaper.
Yeah, very, and that's
Technology.
kind of what, and that's what we're seeing.
Except
as we're
for
going.
iPhones, they get more expensive every
Yeah, which
year.
is strange,
Very
and
odd.
then they keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
But again, so they break it down, and the kind of slick CEO dude from Silicon Valley, you know, he's like, we're making it extremely affordable, so anyone could do this, blah 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 blah, and their cost and how much it costs. And then they go to the dude from New Zealand who's also trying to get a price break, but it costs a lot more. And he goes, I just don't make crap. Which is so funny because, like, literally he was going through like just the individual like rivets on these rockets, you know, and the attention to detail.
It's more of the art of the craftsmanship, I think, for
with
him,
him,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And he's like, he wants it to be perfect and a beautiful work of art, I think.
But again, it just, I thought it was a really interesting look at where we are in this thing, and nobody's really talking about it at all. And eventually there's going to have to be some regulation that comes into play, right?
This happens. You see a pattern with this, like there's no regulation on something, people start jumping in. Oh, things are starting to get crazy. Oh, we screwed up, we didn't regulate this, now we need to try. And then government tries to catch up, and that's when it gets.
That's why these guys are trying to do what they do so they can have a seat at the table, be part of that conversation.
The government always gets late to the party, and then just tries to screw the party up. Really, you know, is what happens with these regulation things.
Usually it can, but again, it's very interesting to see that how fast this is going. And not a lot of people.
Yeah,
are really
it's cool. Hey, if you're listening right now, you can build a rocket and send it to space.
Send it to space. Let us know, because
totally
I'd love access to your satellite wherever it is. That would be super dope.
Or put like a picture of me and Mike up there and shoot it to the moon.
Pictures of me and Jay in the backyard of our house.
Boy, he already gave you his address earlier.
No, I didn't. That was edited out. We'll be back with the Dark Side of the Stream, episode 194, and our review is next on 104.7. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 194, Wild Space. How many satellites would you give this?
I'll give it 3 little satellites.
3 little satellites?
Easy watch, but it didn't. There was nothing crazy. I like twists and stuff. And
you get to see these kind of on the fringe and see the story about how this stuff kind of came to fruition, and how, again, when the government becomes too big and they start to not really pay attention, eventually somebody little is going to come through and say, hey, we can do this faster, cheaper, smaller, quicker, whatever.
I mean, just like how Elon reuses the rockets. That's huge. The government used to blow them up, and now they reuse them, and it's like that probably saves a lot of money.
Yeah. Man, The last question I'm going to ask you: would you ever take a commercial flight to space?
Nah, I'm good, man. I don't. Same reason I don't go scuba diving, dude. It's like the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah. What about skydiving?
No way, dude. You?
Oh yeah, bro.
Have you?
Not skydiving. No.
Well, are you going to?
Yeah, I was actually going to go with a buddy of mine.